Does that make you nervous again? The St. John's, the divine? Firstly, remember this. Already just in the name of the cathedral, there is a blasphemy. Why? Because St. John was never divine. He was never divine. This is a misnomer. This is a secret Luciferian code. There is the largest cathedral in the world. It's in New York. It's the Episcopal Diocese. This is where they had the female Christ and all of those things. They have a huge statue of pagan deities, Apollo carrying the world. And now let's have a look at another very prominent United Nations man involved in this centrality. And that man is Robert Miller, former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, also said, we must move as quickly as possible to a one-world government, a one-world religion, and a one-world leader. And there you have the full catastrophe. A one-world government, a one-world religion, and a one-world leader. Then you have the fasciae, the fascism, one leader to which the world looks for leadership on these issues. Now, behind the United Nations, again, you will have the top thinkers. We looked at him last night, just briefly. I just sowed the seed. His name was Tyler de Chardin, the Jesuit. And he was Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Now, Robert Miller, the Undersecretary General of the United Nations at that time, wrote, Teilhard de Chardin had always viewed the United Nations as the progressive institutional embodiment of his philosophy. Now, if it was his philosophy, then it was also whose philosophy? The Jesuits' philosophy, because they swear an oath of utter allegiance. Teilhard also wrote, although the form is not yet discernible, mankind tomorrow will awaken to a pan-organized world. Why are you doing that? That's very naughty. You remember, no, you don't remember this statement. Here's Robert Miller speaking again. And he says, Teilhard de Chardin influenced his companion, father, whatever, who inspired his colleagues, who started a rich process of global and long-term thinking in the UN, which affected many nations and people around the world. Now, Robert Miller says, I have myself been deeply influenced by Teilhard. So the Jesuit had his influence on Miller. Any Teilhardian, he continues, will recognize in this the spiritual transcendence which he announced so emphatically as the next step in our evolution. Now remember, he was a Jesuit, he was a Marxist, he was a pantheist, he was an evolutionist, he was a humanist, and he was the father of the New Age movement. You will find him on the Jesuit webpage. It comes straight from them. They don't deny him. And here are some of his quotes. It is a law of the universe that in all things there is prior existence. Before every form there is a prior but lesser evolved form. Each one of us is evolving towards Godhead. What does that tell you? We're God. This is spiritualism. What I'm proposing to do is to narrow the gap between pantheism and Christianity by bringing out what one might call the Christian soul of pantheism, or the pantheistic aspect of Christianity. Now, isn't this thunderous? This is what they want to do to every single church in the world. And will they try it with ours? Yes. The spirit of prophecy said the Omega will be more startling than the Alpha. Remember that? And that was pantheism. And we dealt with that, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Done is done. I can be saved only by becoming one with the universe. This is Buddhism. I believe that the Messiah whom we await, whom we all without any doubt await, is the universal Christ. That is to say, the Christ of evolution. Now, it's not mine. Mine is the Christ of creation. So, this is another Christ. And we read this quote last night, a general conversion of religion upon a universal Christ who satisfies them all. That seems to me the only possible conversion of the world and the only form in which a religion of the future can be conceived. And he's right. So Jesus must be excluded from the equation, or else you will not have unity. And if we refuse, then Satan will have to attack that group and obliterate it, or else he doesn't have a complete kingdom. And this is where we're heading. Now, in the United Nations, this man, Dag Hammarskjöld, he was the second Secretary General, had the UN prayer room built. Now, this is a very strange room. It's a trapezoid. It's shaped like a trapezoid, and it has one altar. And he writes, "The stone in the middle of the room has more to tell us. We may see it as an altar." Aha, so it's a place of worship. Empty, not because there is no God, because it is an altar to an, not because it is an altar to an unknown God, but because it is dedicated to the God whom man worships under many names and many forms. Oops. Is our God worshipped under many names and many forms? Yes or no? No. So this prayer room is dedicated to another God. But it's not my God. So now I have a problem. Who is this God? Here are 3 quotes. "The meditation room faces north-northeast. To enter the room, one must proceed from darkness to light." In other words, Masonic. Indeed, the middle order of the Satanic Brotherhood is called the Order of the Trapezoid. That's satanic. Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, refers to the occult principle known as the law of the trapezoid. So as soon as you see the trapezoid, that's like the triangle without the capstone, then get nervous. Get very nervous. Robert Miller writes, "One could tell several moving stories of the spiritual transformation of the UN has caused to the point that this little speck on earth is becoming holy ground. For example, the rational, intellectual economist Dag Hammarskjöld found God at the United Nations, and inspiration for his work as a world servant in the mystics of the Middle Ages. Towards the end of his markings overflow with spirituality and mysticism." So is this the God of the Bible, or is this another one? It must be another one. In the prayer room, they chant, "I am, I am, I am, I am." This is a strange philosophy. So now let's look at one of the most important men in the United Nations. Robert Miller, former UN Assistant Secretary General. He's chairperson of the Peace Party 2000. He's called the philosopher and the prophet of hope of the United Nations. He's a deeply spiritual person. We've seen that already. From his vantage point as a top-level global spokesperson, he had a strong connection between the spirituality and the political cultural scene. He's also the Chancellor of the University of Peace created by the United Nations. So this is not some pumpkin somewhere. He's also the author of the World Core Curriculum, what every person has to learn from henceforth has been inspired by this man worldwide. He's known as the father of global education. He also earned the UNESCO Peace Education Prize in 1989. He's also the man who set up the framework for world media coverage. What you see on your television is what was permitted through him and his committee, and a framework for planetary and cosmic consciousness, and a framework for the arts and culture. He's a busy man. He's a very busy man. So let's ask him what his philosophy is about. He writes in the foreword, in the preface to World Core Curriculum, the following, quote, this is Robert Miller. "The underlying philosophy upon which the Robert Miller School is based will be found in the teachings set forth in the books of Alice A. Bailey." Oops. The school is now certified as a United Nations associated school, providing education for international cooperation and peace. Now, this is what Alice A. Bailey claimed. She said, "Evidence of the growth of a human intellect along the needed perceptive lines can be seen in the planning of various nations in the efforts put forth by the United Nations to formulate a world plan. From the very start of this unfoldment, 3 occult factors have governed the development of these plans." And she says, within the United Nations, there is a group of informed ones who will lead the world in that direction. There are her quotes. She didn't say what the three occult factors were. We spoke about